Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome CCO Time Inc. Brands, Meredith Corp., and President Fortune, Alan Murray.
Thank you. So this is going to be the best session that you attend at DreamWorks. I promise you that. And it's going to be better than the Kavanaugh hearings, if any of you were watching that. And the reason it's going to be the best session, there are three reasons. One is because the retail industry is being so profoundly disrupted these days, more disrupted probably than any industry other than media, and we're not going to talk about that. The second reason is you have these two companies represented on the stage here today who are at complete opposite ends of the spectrum. One is a 165-year-old omni-channel retailer, Levi Strauss. The other is a 10-year-old disruptor, Rent the Runway. And the third reason that this is going to be the best panel is because they are both really cool CEOs. And let me welcome both out here right now. Jennifer Hyman from Rent the Runway and Chip Bergh from Levi Strauss. Jennifer, you get the middle.
Thank you.
So, Jennifer, I want to start with an amazing statistic I ran across researching Rent the Runway. It said that your average subscriber uses you 120 days a year.
Yes.
It totally blew my mind. I thought we were talking about people renting ball gowns for big events, but I was clearly wrong. What happens in those 120 days? What are they doing?
Yeah, well, when we launched the business 9 years ago, it was a business where you were renting a dress and accessories for a special occasion. And then I saw that our customers were demanding the ability to rent for what they considered the most important occasion in their life, which was going to work every single day. That's actually the place where they wanted to feel the most confident, and it was the place where they actually spent the most on clothing. Because women can't show up to the workplace every day in a blue button-down and jeans and be taken seriously. You have to have variety in your wardrobe, and you have to dress for the job that you want. So we launched a subscription to fashion 2.5 years ago, where you pay a monthly fee, and you receive 4 items at a time, and you swap them an unlimited number of times throughout the month. And
how quickly can you turn them over?
You can turn them over as frequently as you want, and each can be turned over on its own cycle. And the results, as you've said, have been startling. The average subscriber is using Rent the Runway, meaning they're wearing an outfit that is rented 120 days of the year, as opposed to going into their closet in their bedroom or buying something new. And I recently spoke to Howard Schultz and was telling him about this, and he was saying, you know, the average American only buys coffee 95 days of the year. So you're doing pretty good in changing consumer behavior. So it's been remarkable, and what we found is the more we add to the assortment, so the more we add different product categories onto the site, the more frequently she uses the subscription.
Yeah.
So when we added denim, which we only did a year ago, and it was a category I never in a million years thought that people would want to rent. And it's our most popular category. Now, the sort of denim that we're renting is much more trend-based. It's not the traditional Levi's 501 that you need to own, but it's a pair of overalls or a frayed pair of denim that you want to try and potentially wear for a little bit or experiment with. And
Well, since you brought up denim,
yes.
Chip, that's kind of your thing.
It is kind of. Can you tell?
Pretty evident. But as Jennifer was saying, I mean, so many people are making denim products these days. Why does somebody buy Levi's?
Well, I think because we're the original. We've got what nobody else has. We were the very first pair of jeans, and nobody can ever take.
Does that matter to the consumer today? Say, hey, this company's been around for 165 years, therefore I want to buy that pair of jeans?
I think it's important, it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. I mean, our story is one of respecting our heritage and our authenticity, while at the same time stepping forward with innovation. And we've really been trying to, and the brand is definitely having a moment right now. There's been an amazing resurgence behind the Levi's brand over the last couple of years. We're growing double-digit now.
What's driving that?
It is this return to authenticity. There is definitely a consumer movement, I would call it, away from fast fashion back towards authenticity and products that are going to last for a long, long time. We were saying backstage, you know, if you buy a quality trucker jacket from Levi's, you could be handing it down to your grandchildren in 30 or 40 years.
Are you seeing the same thing, Jennifer, a turn away from fast fashion?
The whole premise to my business is a turn away from fast fashion. All of the reasons why you would use fast fashion, which by the way is 85% of the fashion wallet in this country is spent on fast fashion. Fast fashion just means you're buying a high quantity of items at super cheap prices, and those items are made in very low quality.
And you're throwing them away 3 days later.
And you're throwing them away. So for all of the reasons why you would go into an H&M or a Zara, it's cheap, it is convenient, you want something new, you need a pick-me-up, you have a last-minute occasion, you want to wear something trendy that you know you're not going to wear a few weeks from now. For that, you now just have a substitution in having a subscription to fashion and getting the real thing and not having to settle for the $15 thing that's going to end up in a landfill.
So you guys aren't so different after all. You're both selling quality. You're trying to push people away from fast fashion into quality products.
Exactly. I mean, we are the ultimate in slow fashion. And we're one of the most sustainable products in the apparel industry.
Well, so maybe there's a deal to be done between the two of you.
We should talk.
Yes.
Maybe we
Deals are
already
made here at Dreamforce, right? Let's talk a little bit about bricks and mortar, right? You're omni-channel. You've moved into bricks and mortar. What, you have how many stores? 5 or 6 stores?
5 stores.
5 stores. I mean, and people look at that and say, why would you do that? I mean, that's the part of the industry that's getting killed. Why do you want bricks and mortar stores?
Well, the experience of being a subscriber, walking into a store, grabbing anything off the shelf, scanning it, and walking out. So this idea of we've legalized shoplifting in our stores, and that's a really empowering feeling for many of our customers. It's actually magical to think about priceless shopping. If you have a subscription and you turn a store into a place of pure discovery, it feels more like you're entering Willy Wonka land than a traditional store where you might be limited by price or you might be limited by rationality. So we find that it creates a whole new level of engagement and discovery amongst our customers, where they go into a store, they see something beautiful, they know that they could use it as part of their subscription, and they discover it and fall in love with it.
But do the stores make money? Are they profitable, or how do you measure that?
So the stores for us save us money, because the major cost of our business is shipping back and forth to the customer. And in a sense, when a customer enters our store, she becomes the carrier. She becomes UPS because she's bringing back the clothing she's already worn, and she's picking up new clothing from the store. So it's a huge money saver for us.
Do you think you'll do more?
We're definitely going to do more.
I mean, how far can this go?
Well, we have a big announcement coming up in a few weeks, so stay tuned on that.
And Chip, how about you? I mean, what percentage of your product these days is sold in brick and mortar?
So Levi's, it started as a traditional wholesaler, and but today a third of our business and growing is retail. We have about 3,000 stores. We're a huge retailer actually on a global basis. We have about 3,000 stores, of which we own about 750. The balance are franchise stores. But I would go back to how you opened this part of the session. Retail's not dying. Actually, retail is starting to have a resurgence, and I think a lot of retailers have started to figure out how to compete with the online pure players. Our retail business has been really healthy. We've grown double digits globally. We don't report comp stores, but our brick and mortar retail business has grown double digits.
Well, what's the secret? Because there are certainly plenty of people out there in brick and mortar retail who are not doing well.
You do have to have a little bit of a Willy Wonka type of experience, some discovery that's going to happen in the store. But I like to say we've got to give our consumer a reason to walk into our doors. We need to give them something beyond what they can do by going to Amazon.com, typing in Levi's, and just buying it on Amazon. And I'm fine. I'm agnostic on where the consumer decides to buy Levi's. But giving the consumer an experience, giving them a reason to come into our store, a combination of the service that they get from our stylists, but we're now putting tailor shops in most of our mainline doors around the world where people can come in, they can get a trucker jacket, they can customize it, they can write their name over the pocket or put a patch on it or something like that, something that makes it unique, an item of one, because the importance of personalization, customization is everybody wants something a little bit different than their best friend.
Well, that's actually been one of the major changes in fashion over the past 20 years. If you think about 15 to 20 years ago, every woman in this country was wearing a juicy sweatsuit, and she wanted to look like everyone else. And now, because of social media and Instagram, where everyone has become their own brand, they want to look like no one else.
They want to look like them.
And they want to put together uniqueness. And so brands that enable you to personalize to that audience of one are doing fabulous things. That's another reason why fast fashion has grown, because fast fashion gives you the ability to constantly have variety. If it's at a really cheap price, you could get newness all the time. So that's really what I saw as the entry point for Rent the Runway, of offering even more variety to the customer and much higher value.
Wow. Are you offering more variety these days, Chip? Is there a push for variety, or is there?
These tailor shops give the consumer infinite variety. It gives them the opportunity to completely customize or tailor something specifically for them.
At the most high-end department stores in Paris, in New York, you can't walk on the floor anymore without there being custom artists where you could take any piece of clothing and have it painted on and have it customized to you. And it's, I think, a symbol of this larger trend of, I don't want to buy the same bag that everyone else has. I'll buy the bag.
Is there anybody in the audience who has clothing with something painted on it? Raise your hand. I'm just looking to see. Well, oh, yeah, there you go. Can we see it?
Well, I will predict that within the next 3 years, all of you will.
That's, Chip, show him the back of your jacket. Stand up and show him the back of your jacket.
So we're on a big voting thing right now.
We'll get back to that.
We can talk about that. But so we actually, just to plug our store here in San Francisco, I can't resist, but right on Market Street, just a few blocks away, we've got one of our flagships, and there's a tailor shop there where if you want the ultimate customization experience, we will make a pair of customized jeans for you, and it is bespoke tailored jeans for $750. And we sell a lot of them in our flagships. So, and that is the ultimate in customization.
Wow.
I'm not wearing a pair today, I usually do, but.
Do you have painted clothes at Rent the Runway?
Well, Rent the Runway gives you access to millions of different styles that you can constantly have on rotation. One of the interesting things is that our subscribers, they're using it 120 days of the year. 98% of the time, they're trying a brand they've never owned before, meaning every single time they come, they're discovering something new, and they're trying something that is outside of what they would have traditionally bought, right? Because if you remove yourself from the shackles of feeling like you have to own it forever, it removes the rationality from it. You could just have emotion behind the experience. Your favorite color might be hot pink, but you don't buy a lot of things in hot pink because it's really not rational color for you to own. But when you come to Rent the Runway, you can finally wear it. So we're really the first company to separate the act of wearing from the act of owning. And wearing is what we all want to do.
Chip, you mentioned Amazon. It's hard to talk about the retail business without talking about Amazon. Do you see Amazon as a friend of Levi Strauss or a foe?
Yes. They are, and I get asked this question all the time on earnings calls. They are a very big and important customer of ours. And like I said, I am really agnostic to where the consumer buys their Levi's. And if they want to buy it from Amazon, that's great. We actually make more money on the jeans that we sell from Amazon than the jeans that we sell on our own website.
You do?
Because of the cost of fulfillment and everything else. But so they're an important customer, but at the same time, they are very determined to create their own private brands, and they're collecting a lot of data on the Levi's consumer. And in many ways, they probably have more data on that consumer than even we do.
That's a problem.
And that is a problem.
And I know you're working to, because as you said, you started as a wholesaler, you're really working to have a direct-to-consumers now up to what, 30%?
It's 35% roughly of our total business, and that includes e-commerce.
And part of the turnaround you've engineered at the company is to increase that direct-to-consumer relationship.
It was 20% 7 years ago when I joined the company. It's 35%, and it's on its way to 50. I mean,
You'll
our
get
goal,
to 50?
We need to become, and it is one of the legs on our stool strategically, is to become a leading world-class omni-channel retailer.
Because it's pretty hard to operate in today's retail world without the direct consumer relationship.
If we were purely a wholesale channel play today, when you look at what the Levi's brand looks like, if you're to walk into a wholesale customer, a Macy's, Sears, JCPenney, Kohl's, it doesn't matter. You can walk in any of them. They all sell Levi's. We're not in control of the brand when we're in their store. And I'm a brand guy. You've got to have control of your brand, and we have ultimate control when we're managing it in our retail stores.
Jennifer, what's to keep Amazon from just creating its own Rent the Runway once it sees how successful you've been?
Well, nothing is to keep Amazon from anything because they have the cheapest cost of capital on the planet, and we all enable them to do that. But one thing I'll say is that my business is primarily about logistics, and what we've learned from how to restore garments when we were renting 10 items is different than what we know after 10,000, after 100,000, after 1 million, after 10 million. You know, we're really the world experts in how to take an article of clothing that's been worn, use dry cleaning and repairs and seamstresses to restore it to perfect condition and send it out again. And you can't short circuit the learnings around that logistical system. The other thing is that Amazon is the very best in the world at outbound logistics. That's why we can all rely on Amazon Prime. And as someone who lives in New York City, I order something from Prime and it arrives 3 hours later, not 2 days later. That being said, whenever I return anything to Amazon,
more complicated.
It's a much more complicated situation. And we've focused 100% on inbound logistics.
Because that's the harder piece of the puzzle.
Well, that's what we do. We're in the inbound logistics business of turning around that item and understanding how to process it same day to the next customer, because my business is around asset utilization. It's not just about a sell-through rate on a single item of clothing. That's one aspect. The other thing is that we're a fantastic partner to brands. So because a customer is using us 120 days of the year, we're funneling all of that data back to our brand partners. And actually 50% of the inventory that's up on Rent the Runway is changed by the manufacturer based on the data we give them. So we're giving them data that is helping them understand fit issues they have, quality issues they have, the reason why their sell-through rate may be high but their loyalty rate may be low. So it's actually helping our brands become better businesses across the board.
Well, so if Amazon can't imitate you, will they buy you?
I don't know.
Would you sell if they wanted to?
I mean, I'm here to change consumer behavior, and I think that we have an opportunity to have every woman in the world have a subscription to fashion. The idea that a portion of what we wear every single day should be comprised of things we don't have to own forever doesn't seem crazy to me. In the same way I had this vision 10 years ago, and people might have believed that our music was going into the cloud, our entertainment was going into the cloud, but it was harder for them to believe that our closets would too. And I think that if you look at every industry on earth and the movement from ownership into access, it is a lot more believable today, especially based on all of the subscribers that we have and their behavior, that this is the way that we're going to think about getting dressed in the future.
Yeah, fascinating. So both of you, look into your crystal balls. You have great experience in this industry. Cast forward 10 years. What is retail going to look like, Chip?
Well, it can go in a lot of different directions. I think in the apparel industry, there will always be brick and mortar doors, but they may also be in driverless cars 10 years from now, where you can order something and a car shows up at your front door to deliver your product. I think it is inevitable that it is going to be more and more digital, and this notion of the digitally empowered consumer. Most importantly, we just have to stay focused on where the consumer is heading and understanding where the technology is heading with the consumer. I also believe that it's going to have knock-on consequences with supply chains. So the consumer, I mean, you said it just a minute ago, the consumer is expecting things quicker and faster. The apparel industry works with these enormously long supply chains. That's going to change as well. But retail and brick and mortar is not going away. And I think everybody is starting to recognize that. The key is, how do you empower retail, or how do you power it through digital technology so that the consumer is getting what they want?
I'm going to come back to technology in a minute, but Jennifer, 10 years out, what do you expect?
Two predictions. Number one is that all of this focus that a lot of traditional players have had on their digital experiences recently, they're going to have to very quickly shift to new platforms like text message, voice, et cetera, because we're not going to use websites. They're going to be filled with friction in the future. You know, if you want a new pair of jeans, you should be able to say it into Alexa, and Alexa will know as much about you and be able to recommend, here's 4 choices for you, and you pick one. So I think that we're moving platforms much quicker than people anticipate.
So it'll be, Alexa, I need a dress for Saturday night.
I think voice and text are going to be the primary ways that we shop, and via social media. So those will be the top 3. The other prediction that I have is that the department store business globally will continue to decline. One piece, 20 years ago, over 75% of fashion purchases in this country were done in a department store. Today, it's under 30%. I think that number is going to go in the next 10 years to under 5% of purchases across the board in department stores, because I think that the format is pretty archaic. So I agree that there will still be traditional, bricks and mortar stores, and the stores that understand how to deliver an experience that's fun or personalized or customized or gives you back time, those are going to be the ones that win.
I'm sure some of these predictions are based on what you see in terms of generational trends. I mean, Chip, how are young people consuming Levi's differently than old people?
Well, social shopping and digital is the way the young consumer is consuming everything today. Not just how they're buying their jeans, but how they're consuming media and everything else. So,
do they want the same product? Or?
Yeah. On our product, yeah. But they want to be able to personalize it and customize it and make it their own.
Yeah. Is Rent the Runway a young person's game?
A young person's game. Well, we certainly started off that way, but I think the subscription has really proven that it's applicable to women of all ages. And one of the things, the stats I'm proudest of, beyond the number of days she uses us, is our customer base represents 76% of all zip codes in the US. So most VC-backed startups really cater to the coasts. And the fact that 76% of zip codes in this country have a Rent the Runway customer means that we're a service that really cuts across class and ethnicity and geography, and this is something that's smart for everyone.
You refer to your customer as she. The traditional Levi's customer is a he, but what's the actual makeup of both of your business in terms of?
Well, mine's 100% female, so
100%.
That's why I call her
Will that
she.
ever change?
I think that it will change in the future, but for now, I think we can build a $50 billion business on women alone. So why take our eyes off the prize?
Why diversify?
Our business skews heavily to men and has historically for a long, long time, but the fastest growing part of our business is our women's business.
Really?
And so that shift is changing. The mix is changing quite a bit. We also used to skew very heavily to bottoms, blue jeans.
Yeah.
The mix is shifting more and more to become a true lifestyle brand, which has been strategically what we're focusing to do. So we're selling a lot more trucker jackets, tops, things like that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned technology earlier. Mark Benioff will tell you that AI, you're both collecting a lot of data from your customers, what you can do with that data in terms of smart algorithms, making sense out of it is going to change all our industries. How is it going to change your business?
So one of the ways it changes it is that every subscriber to Rent the Runway has their own unique personalized homepage. This is not revolutionary. We've entirely copied Netflix, but we have just a lot more data on what you love, and the difference between what you actually pick and what you wear. So there's a major difference between what I decide to take home and if I actually wore it. And if I wore it, did I love it, did I like it, or was it just okay? And what did I wear it for, and what's going on in my week, so that my homepage can be contextualized to the fact that I'm at Salesforce today, but I'm going to a 2-year-old's birthday party on Saturday, so I need a very different kind of look for that. So what we're able to do is surface the discovery, just surface the inventory to every customer on a one-to-one basis that both is best for her, because if she's going to use us 120 days of the year, we need to make it highly efficient for her to choose her next items, but also is going to surface inventory that we want her to see. So we know that when she discovers a new brand via Rent the Runway, she becomes more loyal to us. If she was already a huge fan of Diane von Furstenberg and all we did was show her DVF dresses, that's not of really high value to her. It's of high value if I make her fall in love with something new. It's very similar to Spotify. Why do we all love Spotify? One of their highest value products on that app is Discover Weekly, because every single week you're discovering songs and artists and bands that you...
So that's the kind of technology you want, Spotify technology.
Well, we already have that technology, and we're displaying it to the customer in obviously a different way than a playlist on Spotify, but we're continuing to enhance that so that we can help the customer discover new brands and new looks in a way that's authentic to her and contextualized to her life. The thing about fashion that's harder than music is I can listen to a Jay-Z song whether I'm at the gym or at work or, you know, in an Uber. Whereas this dress is appropriate for today, but if I'm going to a soccer game, it's likely not. So I have to understand the context of my customers' lives.
Yeah, so we've used AI for a while now. It actually started mostly in our e-commerce business. I mean, one great example is if we know you as a shopper, Alan, you like to buy our more premium line, the landing page when you get to our website won't be screaming sale on the lower tier product.
You're going to make me pay more.
I'm going to show you what we know you are already buying. We started experimenting about a year ago. One of the challenges, how do you make shopping online the same kind of experience that you would have if you were to walk in one of our stores, where you're greeted by a stylist who can size you up and look at you and say, you know, you're wearing the wrong kind of jean today. Let me show you something that's better for you. We now have a virtual stylist on our website. It's entirely powered by AI, and it keeps getting smarter by the day. That helps the consumer. It kind of mimics that in-store experience and helps the consumer get what's right for them when they're shopping online. But the potential for AI in our business is enormous. When you think about the complexities of running a global business, a global apparel business, where every single item has got the complexities of length times waist, crazy number of SKUs that we're managing on an annual basis, and we're changing seasons a couple of times a year.
Levi Strauss is obviously a U.S. brand, but how much of your sales now are outside of the...
More than 50%.
More than 50%.
We crossed the 50% threshold about 2 years ago, so we're now, the U.S., it's still our biggest market by far, and I like to call it home court, because this is a market we've got to continue to win in, but it's now less than our business, and our international business is growing faster. We have a lot more opportunity outside the U.S. than we do inside the U.S.
Any particular markets that stand out for you in terms of their rapid
potential or
no,
rapid
where you're doing well now?
I mean, we're killing it right now in Europe, and our business was up 20% last year in Europe, and we're still growing kind of high double digits in Europe.
Yeah.
A couple of years in a row.
How about China? Do you have IT
China,
problems?
we've got no. We've got a good business in China. It's way underdeveloped versus what the potential is. We just named a new country manager there, our first Chinese local country manager, which I think is going to help a lot. We're mostly, or almost entirely, a retail business in China, and we have franchise partners there. We're local partners, so having a local country manager is going to help a lot.
Jennifer, how about you? What are you doing outside the U.S.?
Well, right now we're just in the U.S., but we are investigating where to go first internationally, and it's a goal that within the next 24 months to open up some international outposts of Rent the Runway.
Where do you think
Well, it's very
opportunities
clear
are.
that the potential is highest in Asia, but if you look at other tech companies, probability of success in Asia is lower. So you just have to balance out market potential versus probability of success. We definitely want the first international market we go to be a grand slam home run.
Yeah. Aside from making great products and having great service, how do you two think about loyalty, customer loyalty? How do you lock in your customers?
I think you have to focus on the customer experience and make a promise to customers that you're going to continuously get better. I think brands have to be a lot more human in their interactions. By no means is Rent the Runway perfect all the time. There are a lot of things that happen that are outside of our control. A snowstorm might happen and an order will not be delivered before an important wedding you're going to. But whether it's outside our control or inside our control, we have to continuously be human with the customer, always do what's right for her, and prove quarter over quarter that we're actually listening to her feedback and making the changes that are important to her. So something as simple as we send out a ton of surveys, we get our customers' feedback, and then we actually implement it. And then we tell them, here's what you asked us to do, and we did it.
And we're doing it.
So
You tell them individually? You mean you respond to people who said something on a survey?
More broadly, yes. If a cohort of people on a survey will release the results of that survey and say, as an example,
what we're doing.
in our Unlimited, we sent out a survey last year, was like, what's the #1 thing we could do to change the program to make it better for you? And she said, I want more units at a time. And so we gave her more units at a time. We grandmothered her in at the old price. We said, we're going to do this for everyone, and we're not going to change the price point of the program for you, and we did it because this is the feedback that we heard. But I think it's really important, that simple message of, here's what you told us, and here's our follow-through on what you told us.
How do you think about loyalty?
So, I'm a brand guy, and at the end of the day, consumers will be loyal to you if they trust you. And I think more and more what's happening in the world, consumers, especially younger consumers, they want to attach themselves to brands that share their values.
100%.
And I like to say, they want value and they want your values. And so what a brand stands for today is becoming increasingly more important. You cannot just stand on the sidelines in today's world and not be a brand that's got some soul.
That's a big change. I mean, you wrote a piece for us on Fortune.com about gun safety. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of people out there wearing Levi Strauss blue jeans around the country who are members of the NRA, who may see that as beginning to encroach on their Second Amendment rights. How do you think about that? Because I, as somebody who's covered business for the last 40 years, I can tell you that even 10 years ago, the notion of the CEO of Levi Strauss getting involved in a debate over gun control, or the CEO of Delta Airlines getting involved in a debate over gun control, or we now have so many examples of this, the CEO of Merck taking a stance on the Charlottesville riots, or Mark Benioff getting involved in gay rights laws in Indiana. I mean, they just wouldn't. You say, if it's a controversial issue that's not directly relevant to my bottom line, I don't want to be anywhere near it. So something big has changed in the way people like you think about running these companies.
Yeah, so I part of this is the platform of CEO at Levi Strauss, because this company does have a track record of not being afraid to stick its neck out a little bit on important social issues of the day. So, in 1995, when the Boy Scouts said they weren't going to allow gay troop leaders, we pulled all funding of the Boy Scouts, and in the next week, this is pre-big internet days, the company got 130,000 letters, 97% of which were opposed to the stand that the company took. And I think history would say the company took the right stand, because just about a month ago, the Boy Scouts dropped the name boy from Scouts. And so the company's not afraid and has a legacy.
Did it hurt your business at the time when it did?
well, there were certainly a lot of vocal consumers that were
Yeah.
opposed to it. Whether it actually hurt the business directly, I don't know. And I know when we took the stand, when I took the stand on the gun epidemic, which is the way I think about it, we have an issue with people getting killed, innocent people getting killed, to the tune of almost 100 a day in this country, and something has to get done about it. And ever since the shooting in Parkland, I've been really, really troubled with the fact that we just seem to be making no progress. I mean, the Columbine shooting was 20 years ago, and we've made no progress. In fact, it's arguably gone in the worst direction.
What's been the reaction from Levi?
I mean, the haters, Taylor Swift said it in her song, the haters gonna hate, 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 right? And I did have security in front of my house for a couple of weeks. So,
Wow.
And had death threats and the whole 9 yards. But, you just have to have thick skin as a CEO. And I've got a conviction, and I'm not opposed to guns. But I was an Army officer for 4 years. I was trained in everything from a .22 pistol all the way through a .50 caliber machine gun. And I know what an M16 can do, which is the same thing as an M15, an AR-15. I know what it can do. And we just need to start making progress on common sense laws that will reduce the gun epidemic in this country.
But
I think the broader point is that we are putting our dollars now behind, we have a lot of choices as customers. So you're going to put your dollars behind a company that exemplifies your values. You're going to put your time as an employee behind a company that exemplifies your values. Why are CEOs also standing up to do this more? It's because they want to recruit the best talent, the best employees who are loyal to them and stay with them. And so if you're not going to speak out, your employees are going to start to demand that. I have, my young employee, most of my employees are young, but my 22-year-old employees who are right out of college give me so much hope for the future of this country because they demand what they want. It is a generation that is, I graduated from college and I got a job and I felt lucky to have that job, and I would get in before my boss and I would leave after my boss left, heads down, no matter what my boss said. This is a whole other generation right now. I have 22-year-olds on my team demanding full salary transparency for everyone in the company. And you know what? We now have that because I want to keep those brilliant 22-year-olds on my team. So I think a lot about, who is going to win is based on the talent that you have. There's no distinguishing characteristics in our products anymore. It's about the talent to come up with the ideas to keep you ahead, and that talent is guided by values. And actually, 70% of millennials will not work at a company unless it exemplifies their values.
And you've lived that as well. I mean, you've spoken out on some social issues.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm proudest of in my entire career is that I made a decision earlier this year to equalize benefits across my hourly and salaried employees, so that now if you are an employee on my warehouse team, you get the exact same parental leave and paid family sick leave and bereavement policies and vacation and health care that I do, and any salaried employee. And I believe that the biggest issue in this country is income inequality and the educational inequalities and lack of opportunities that come with that, and realizing that we live in a backwards world where the people with the most money are given the most flexibility, and the people with the least are given zero flexibility and then zero chances to go upward in their careers, because they have to make impossible decisions between, do I want to have a child or do I want to have a job? Do I want to care for my dying mother or do I want to have a job? And there are all of these hidden costs that I was seeing in my own company, where we had attrition rates in our warehouse that were quite high, and we started investigating, why are they high? Do they want to leave Rent the Runway? And we found out it was because we weren't giving them enough time off in paid family sick leave or in bereavement leave, when just human things happened in their lives. So not only doing this within my own company, but then speaking up for it, encouraging other business leaders to do it, and questioning, why is it that this is so rare? Obviously, I brought up Starbucks before, but Starbucks was one of the most moral companies, one of the first to provide health care and now free college to employees that work in their stores, which was revolutionary 20 years ago when they did it, and it's still revolutionary today. Because today, some of the most progressive companies in the world, many of which are based here, you know what? Their corporate employees are getting a year off for having a kid, and if you work on their customer service team or you work in one of their stores or in their warehouses, you get nothing. And that's not the kind of country that I want to live in. It's certainly not the kind of company I want to be the CEO of.
Is this spreading, Chip, or are you guys just... You got some fans out there. Is this spreading, or are you guys the exceptions?
No, I believe that, when governments aren't doing their job or when NGOs aren't doing their job, there is an obligation for leaders to step forward. And that falls largely on CEOs and business leaders to step into the breach, to kind of bridge the gap and begin addressing some of these big social issues that are facing our world today.
And now that we spend the majority of our hours at work.
I think that's the key thing, actually. For these young people, their employer is their main social connection. They're not in organized religion. Yeah. They're getting married much later. They don't have... they're not joiners. Their employment is their main direct connection to society, and they put a lot of expectations in people like the two of you.
But also look at who we lift up in our society as being our heroes. A lot of those people are business leaders. The saints of American culture are, people like the Steve Jobs of the world, people like the Jeff Bezos of the world. We look up to innovators and disruptors. Well, we should also look up to those people for taking moral stances and not just focused on, the bottom line, but focused on the larger contribution that they're making to society.
And I do think it gets back to this, what are consumers buying today? They're buying into the total value proposition of the brands that they're buying and the companies that they're supporting. And it's becoming increasingly important.
So it's not just employees, it's the consumers as well.
That's where we started. It is also the employee. We're based here in San Francisco, a mile and a half away, and we're competing for talent with everybody else in Silicon Valley. Unless you're a designer or a merchant, just about every function at Levi Strauss, those skill sets are fungible to Silicon Valley. If you're in HR, finance, marketing, and we're competing in a talent war here in San Francisco that is brutal.
Yeah.
And we're privately held and don't have stock options to throw at our employees. So to keep employees in this tough market,
you have to do it.
You've got to have a value proposition that your employees buy into.
But I think that makes it sound too much like you're doing it just to get people to come work for you, and clearly it's not about that. It's clearly because it's something that you believe in and you're passionate about it. And at a certain point, CEOs in this country, if you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, you're making 271 times on average the average salary of someone on your team. Okay, CEOs have a nice life. At a certain point, these CEOs probably are waking up to realize that, hey, let me actually do more than just make money. I have a responsibility to give back. If you look at what Nike just did, I think it is the best example of a values-based play that we are going to be talking about for generations to come. Obviously, we already see their stock prices up 37%.
It sold shoes.
It worked.
Was it a values-based play, or was it just a calculation that they could sell more shoes?
It is 100% a values-based play. That was a huge risk to stand behind one of the most controversial issues in this country right now. And I think that company wanted to stand for a value.
Yeah.
And I know as a customer, I am not was not someone who would actively go and buy Nike, and I went after that, and I have purchased hundreds of dollars of Nike product just to show my support for the fact that this is a big company that is taking a huge political stand that is extremely important, and they have a voice, and that they're using that voice for good.
Even going back to the gun thing, I mean, I did get a lot of hate mail and death threats and everything else, but I got a lot of letters from consumers saying, I'm going out and buying
And
Levi's
I think it's
today.
one of the reasons why Levi's is doing so well, that we now, are, as customers, are reminded about all that the brand stands for.
Yeah. Well, kudos to both of you. A strong statement of principle behind brands. Round of applause, please, for Chip Bergh and Jennifer Hyman.